Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Cinema A to B. Today, Ben and I are going to be talking about the 2024 Ridley Scott film, Gladiator II. It's finally got a sequel. It came out in theaters, and we're going to talk about it. So, Ben, you just watched this. I just watched this. What are your thoughts?
Why?
Okay. All right. That's a good start.
So yeah, I watched this last night. I watched it in IMAX. It wasn't really my preference to watch it in IMAX. It's just the screening time worked. It was a really expensive ticket. It looked great. It sounded great. I enjoyed myself. I don't want to crap all over this movie, but I still come back to like, really, why? Why create a sequel to a movie that, I mean, if I made a top 10 list of movies that I thought didn't need a sequel, Gladiator would be near to the top of this list. This is not an original thought of mine. Somebody posted this, I think today or yesterday. Basically, this is like making Saving Private Ryan 2. Like, why would you do that? Why would you do that?
Yeah.
So I've come to a conclusion. I kind of mold this over like, why did this get made? And why is Ridley Scott cool with making this? And why is it, other than that movie with the Last Duel or the Final Duel or something with Affleck?
The Last Duel.
Other than that, Ridley's really right now relegated to making sequels. And I have a theory.
Okay.
And the theory is that Ridley really loves making movies, and these are the only movies that he can make.
Oh, that people will give him money for?
Exactly. That the studios will back.
That's a
and that was where I kind of had that epiphany today. Actually, it was like, why did he do this? Why is he okay with doing this? And my guess is he loves making movies, and this is all that they're going to let him make. Is this in Alien sequels
But he did get to do Napoleon though,
and it's a trade-off, right? I think it's a 2-for-1 or a 1-for-1. Kind of what Nolan had when he would he did Batman Begins and then he turned around and did The Prestige. They do this. I think Napoleon was his one of like that he really wanted to do. And then this was probably part of the deal of like, hey, we want a sequel to Gladiator. And it is doing fairly well for, I mean, it is, it's at least to be a break even, I think, when this is all said and done. But it's super expensive. It went way over budget.
Way over budget.
Like over 300 million or something like that.
Yeah, the estimated budget was like 250, but I know that's...
I heard he had overages. But.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, and it's done right now. As of today, I took a look earlier today. As of today, they're saying the worldwide box office is like 322 million. But still, that's... You're barely going even. But I mean, it's just got released, so it's still got some time to make some money, but yeah, it's frustrating.
Yeah.
Very frustrating.
I kind of want to start with the good, and it's not a long list of good, but okay, so
let me I'll get my overall thoughts.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Just because before we get too deep and I miss them. But it was very much the same. I just kind of was meh with the movie. I liked it better than Napoleon. I thought it was much more put together, Napoleon. I think it needed to be cut down at least 30 minutes by a large margin. But I really felt like it is trying so hard to be Gladiator again. And that was my biggest problem with it. And there were certain moments where I just didn't get like the change of heart situation, those kind of things. So overall for me, kind of the same thing. I'm just like, I didn't think about it until you said it, but like, why is this being made? It was just more like, okay, this is another middling movie in a whole host of middling movies that have been coming from Ridley in the last couple years. So there I am. Okay, so what's the good? where do you go?
So the good is that Gladiator was shot in 99 or 2000 on 35 millimeter film. This is shot digitally. And to me anyway, I felt like they matched the aesthetic rather well of Gladiator. Yeah. It's visually, it feels like the same world, a continuation. It doesn't feel like a dramatic departure visually. The lighting schemes, the cinematography, like it feels really pretty good. So I didn't have any issues from that standpoint. The sound design's good. The music's severely lacking. I guess if I'm going to address kind of the technical aspects, you didn't get Hans Zimmer. They repeat themes. It's just kind of uninspired. And
it's funny because it's Harry Gregson Williams, I believe, who's done some good stuff. Like he did The Martian, which I think is absolutely fantastic. It's an amazing soundtrack. This was, like you said, very derivative. I mean, obviously you're playing off a lot of the same themes and other things that he's got to pull from Zimmer, but it just doesn't have the punch. I didn't walk away. I'm completely agree with you on that regard with the soundtrack.
Yeah. I thought the pacing was actually fairly good. I mean, it has a few points where it slows down, but the edit felt good. I think the original's a little longer than this one technically, but this one probably feels a little longer in some ways. So I went in with really low expectations. This is not a movie that I wanted. It was reminiscent of the low expectations that I went in with Blade Runner 2049. Mm-hmm. This is a sequel to a movie that I didn't think needed a sequel. Obviously, I have a very different impression of that movie than this, but low expectations. I kind of expected just to have these super disconnected, disjointed, massive action sequences, like loosely connected by some sort of story. Mm-hmm. And they actually tried to give me more of a narrative, I felt like, than I was expecting. Whether that really ultimately worked or not, I think is another discussion, but there was effort there in the script to like make me care about characters and try to build some sort of narrative off the original. But sometimes this stuff just felt really fan servicey to me and kind of like you said, very derivative. It's like, and over I don't know how spoilery we want to play on this, but
let's go spoilery.
Okay. So at first glance, you're like, oh, you've got Pedro playing Acacius, the general, which is very derivative of Maximus. Mm-hmm. And then you have Paul playing the grown Lucius. But what ends up happening is they've effectively taken Maximus and split him into two characters. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it adds nothing. Adds nothing. And the other problem I've got is I liked Paul's performance. I didn't think the script was particularly great, but I'm sorry, man. He's no Russell Crowe. He just isn't. There's Russell Crowe's one of one as far as I'm concerned. His physicality, the timbre of his delivery, he's just the man. I mean, there are very few actors that you could have cast as Maximus that would have had the gravitas that Crowe gave that role. And you can tell that Paul's just really giving it his all to try to channel some of that. Mm-hmm. And physically, he moves really well. I was actually impressed with physically what he's doing. But the character's just, you mentioned it. I don't understand how he gets from where he is in the beginning, mm-hmm. this great hater of Rome, to suddenly being cool with being the promised prince of Rome. Mm-hmm. It's very forced. It happens over just a few minutes. And mm-hmm. he goes from, it's not a great arc. It's a very clunky arc.
Very clunky. Well, I mean, he wants to kill Acacius for 2/3 of the movie. And then when he finally gets his chance, he's like, well, you know what? Things have come to light and I love this man now. And I'm like, that's, I can understand going, you know what? I don't want to possibly kill him because I'm now conflicted. But then he's like honoring him as this great man. I'm just and like you said, the switch of want to burn the Roman Empire to the ground to now whoa, maybe we can save it. It's too quick. It's too much, especially he was so much hatred for his mother, all these different things. He still has his wife who's dead, and dealing with that. the pieces aren't there. Like I completely understood why Maximus in the first Gladiator wanted to do what he did. He did love Rome, but he hated the emperor. So that was his mission, was to get rid of Commodus, right? Not to burn Rome. Rome was not his enemy. Commodus was his enemy, you know? And so it's this weird dynamic. Also saw the whole Lucius thing coming pretty much instantly. Like the moment they went back and showed it, I was like, oh yeah, well this is certainly Lucius, because he's definitely.
I thought they gave away the Lucius angle in the trailers.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't see the trailers for it.
Yeah, the trailers totally didn't hide. They didn't even try to hide it. It was like, yeah, they even went so far in a trailer, I'll have to find it, where they intercut a conversation with Paul and Connie as Lucilla with the Maximus's old breastplate. And they intercut it, and I'm like,
by the way,
yeah, they didn't try to hide it at all in the trailers. It was like and that's the whole thing. This whole thing is super predictable.
Yeah, and hated the fact that he uses Maximus's armor and sword and stuff like that. I'm like, just don't. Like, you didn't know the man. Also, I actually really do hate that Lucius is Maximus's son. Like, I feel like does a disservice, because he talks about the fact that that Lucius is the same age as his son. So like Maximus felt like too much of a moral character, loved his wife too much and his kids to really sleep around. Right. And if he wouldn't have. Yeah, I guess that doesn't make sense. Right. The age. I mean, if Lucius was a little bit older, maybe before he was married, and I knew she had a thing for him, but like, it felt very much like he was keeping her at a distance. Like, no, I love my wife.
Yeah, I mean, it was super retconned. For sure absolutely. That was retconned.
It's not. Yeah.
Yeah.
And going through the other things, like, I like Pedro Pascal. I'm not tired of him yet, even though they're throwing him in on everything. I feel like he was highly underutilized in this film. Like, he was kind of put in a box and just like, you just got to stand there. We want to make you bigger than your character actually arc gives it, but we can't let you really, because we want to make Paul Lucius, his character shine. So you really can't.
It's funny, if you go on IMDb, Paul Mescal is cited as Lucius, not his barbarian character name.
No,
like, so they were never trying to hide it.
No.
And then Denzel, I love Denzel, but I mean, this was basically the pitch meeting for this movie was, okay, we're going to take Gladiator, and then we're going to take Training Day.
Yeah. So
Caesar ain't got on me. Yeah, I mean, so you could see the third act coming a mile away. Like, it was like, yeah, this guy's got ill intentions, and it was sort of funny to me how quickly he talks to the, what is it, Geta, and then like, oh, I'll talk to him. And then he immediately goes in there and is like, yeah, he's trying to kill you. Like,
just doesn't even hide it, doesn't even try, just slide it in. He just knows Geta's absolutely crazy. So I do want to stop and talk about Denzel for a little bit, because I did come in the movie with like mid to low expectations of the movie. I came in with really low expectations for Denzel, and not because I think Denzel's a bad actor, because obviously that's very false. He's a great actor. I just didn't feel like he was right for this part. I also know he really doesn't do accents. And I was feeling like I'm going to get this vibe of like, he's just, kind of like we talked about in Conan, where I was like, Valeria is like, just doesn't fit because she's talking so American, or like, so and her dialogue choices just don't fit in that world. So I had very low expectations for Denzel. I will say that Denzel did not feel out of place to me at all, even though he was the only one speaking an American accent. Like, even though that wasn't fitting, that like the way his delivery and how he was pacing himself made it so he fit in that realm. Like, he didn't need an accent, from wherever, to fit. Like, he just kind of, the physicality of his vocals kind of really worked in those scenes. Like, he was able to not talk, like, use his American accent, but not talk like an American. I think that's the difference, is that he was able to do that So he's definitely, excuse me, by far he had the best acting chops out of everybody, in my opinion, because he was the most interesting character in this entire thing. Even though I saw, like you said, like I knew this was coming. I will say I walked away and I was thinking about this the next day and I was like, I would have actually preferred to see this be his story as opposed to the tie-ins to Gladiator. Like, and then we follow him and then, we think he's the hero. And then he turns into like the bad guy.
Oh, that'd have been cool.
Like that would have been a bold choice. I mean, it would have. Yeah. But so I was, and like maybe, even keep the Gladiator, make Lucius a more side character who comes into, Denzel's life, into his realm. And then he kind of carries him around. And then you see him learn it as opposed to Lucius saying it. And so like you're not 100% sure Lucius is truly like the heir or all these different things. And I was like, wow, that could have been a much more interesting movie. And also you have it on the best actor in the whole thing, in my opinion, who would have kind of led this. So I'll let you talk. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. By far him watching Macrinus play everybody is, even though it's coming, is probably one of the more interesting things to watch in the whole movie.
Yeah.
Making side bets here and a little birdie told me this and using it to his advantage, and he's pretty efficient with it, which is I think just a runtime issue because they spend so much time building. I felt like they almost had to do too much world building in this for a sequel. Yeah. Like it felt like way too much buildup for a world that we're already pretty familiar with. Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of frustrating. But the action sequences are a sheer spectacle. And by and large, with the exception of some of the shark shots, everything looked pretty good. Even the rhino looks pretty solid.
Yeah.
But eventually you get kind of numb to everything because they just try to make one battle bigger than the other.
And I'm telling you, I hated the sharks.
Yeah.
In the sea battle. Now, 100%, I loved the nautical battle because that's actually accurate. They would flood the Colosseum. Yeah. We'd have it on record that they did it at the Colosseum in Rome and then somewhere else, but apparently they may have done it multiple times. The biggest thing I had was it wouldn't have been seawater. It would have just been regular because you wouldn't run an aqueduct from the ocean to Rome that's inland with seawater. There's no purpose. You would do it with fresh water. So they would have filled it with fresh water, which then you couldn't put sharks because, yes, I understand there are sharks that can swim in fresh water. None of them are native to Italy or the Mediterranean. Or really, it's basically the Americas and Australia are the ones that have sharks that can swim basically upriver. And so that really pulled me out and I'm going to let you really, but it got me so upset because I was like, you didn't need it. The rest, the entirety of the actual fight sequence would have been cool enough. Yeah, the battle
was cool by itself. Yeah. It didn't need sharks. No, sharks.
I was just waiting for the shark to jump over one of the ships and snag a guy.
Well, they definitely did jump the shark with that inclusion. Yeah, it was... It was unnecessary, unneeded, but it looked, and I don't know if you noticed, they kind of went away from the sharks eventually with that battle sequence too. They kind of just ditched it and stuck with some of the cool maneuvering that they were doing with the ships themselves, which was kind of interesting. But yeah, this thing's got issues. It's sitting at about a 6.9 on IMDb, and I'd probably give it about a 7. So I think it's probably sitting exactly where it deserves to be.
Yeah. I would say as well for like the dialogue, it just felt like they rushed some of things and like a lot of stuff got through or they didn't really spend a lot of time because, I mean, you have Macrinus basically says, hose him down. I'm sorry. What? Hose him down? They have hoses? Like I'm pretty sure like it would not have had, like they would have done something else like, make him like bathe him.
Well, then you got the guy reading the newspaper.
Yeah.
What else? Oh, the other one that really threw me, and I don't know the history on it, so you'll have to correct me if it was legit. But like when they basically had those chain things, the way you would like groom a baseball diamond.
Yeah.
And I was like, really? Really?
I don't know.
I don't know either, but it was like,
it felt out of place. It did.
It was like, yeah, there's usually just two guys like dragging these at the ball diamond, and it's just doesn't feel right. Like,
I mean, it is low tech, so it possibly could, but
yeah.
I don't know. I also was thrown by that, but I mean, just everything felt really, really not punched up, like especially like the speech at the end that Lucius gives.
So it starts off well, and then it runs out of steam.
It ran out of steam really fast for me. I was like, this needs to get cut. Like I'm ready for these guys.
They should have gotten whoever was the screenwriter for the speech in The King with Timothée Chalamet.
Yes.
They should have gotten that guy or gal to write Lucius's speech to the gladiators at the end, because that speech was okay, but the very end.
It was the two. Even this, like the speech is fine in the gladiators. I actually think his saying that he says all movie that Lucius does or whatever, his death is not among us or something like that, or where we are, death is, we are not. Where death is, we are not. Yeah. Dumb. It just is, to me, I'm like, this is stupid. and I know they're trying to make something as awesome as what we do in life echoes in eternity, but you can't match that. I'm sorry. That line is absolutely amazing and one of the best in cinema. And you just can't do it. Like, don't even try. Like I would say that, like, again, they're trying to make Lucius too much like Maximus. Let him be his own character, his own person who finds out, and then maybe instead of his own line, he then takes that line at the end when he learns that he's Maximus's son and says, "This is what my father said." Like, someone tells him, he just goes, "As my father said, what we do in life echoes in eternity." Like that would feel, to me at least, would feel a little bit better, more connection than like, oh, this guy who you've only met your real father once in your entire whole life, who is then, you then have the same kind of mannerisms and, have your own little, I don't know. It felt dumb. There's so much about this that I was like, these are poor choices. You didn't work enough on them.
The bar was so high. It was like you're just playing catch up at every turn when you're trying to make a movie like this. And it's like then they didn't do what our favorite discussion is with these things, which is a genre swap. They didn't even attempt that. It's in a lot of ways, it just feels like a straight up remake.
It is, because he does the same kind of like, has to prove himself at the beginning, and then he kills some people, and then the fight, the fight owner guy, the gladiator's like, oh, he's better than I thought. Let me take him under my wing. And it just, I was just waiting for Denzel to go, what do you want? Girl? Boy? Kind of like in the first one, I was just like, can you steal more stuff? Again, even if it's just not a genre switch, make it its own movie. Like, I feel like this is the Force Awakens of Gladiator. Like, it's basically the retelling of the same story. Just,
that's very fair. I think that's spot on.
It is. It's just like, it's just frustrating because this could have been done so much better. And I don't know. And I don't want to put this too much on Ridley. I don't know how much is his fault, because I think what you said at the beginning was very correct, that maybe the studios are like, we need you to make a sequel and it has to involve X, Y, and Z. This is what we want, instead of going off on your own and making something. Because I think he could have made something interesting. Well, I don't know. Napoleon again was
well, and Ridley's not a writer. So like Ridley, now he rewrites stuff famously. And I wonder if they attempted the same process on this one as they did the original. You remember when we discussed Gladiator, that they just were shooting at the hip, just doing rewrites during filming, a la kind of like Tombstone.
Yeah.
I wonder if they attempted that process again. They're just like, oh, it worked for us the first time. It didn't feel like that. But
no.
Now, what on earth is going on with the end of this film?
Oh, with the battle between the two? Or
no, the very, very end of the movie, where Lucius goes back into...
Oh, and he's picking up the dirt and stuff like that? And
he's trying to commune with with Maximus.
And then they cut to the stupid, like, of Maximus in Elysium.
He's still in the same
whatever.
place he was. He hasn't moved from that spot. He's still just putting his hands in the wheat. And
well, that's really what he wanted. He didn't really want his son or his wife. He just wanted to be out in the fields.
Just
alone.
a farmer. Just a farmer. No, I was like, okay, so this is super open-ended, and like, because I've read rumors, or not rumors, but I think I've read an interview with Ridley where he, if this did well, he was like, we were considering Gladiator 3.
Wait, let me see. Lucius decides to become emperor, and Lucius's son, Maximus's grandson, has to then come in and save the Republic again, save the dream of Rome. That sorry. So it just, I mean, I know like historically, like that it stayed an empire or whatever and stuff like that, but just again.
I mean, if they do a Gladiator 3, then what it is going to be, it will be Lucius like trying to work somehow with senators to try to create some sort of free Rome. And then some other big baddie that they cast is going to come in to try to ruin everything. Mm-hmm. The only thing interesting they could do is bring back the guy from, I forget the actor's name, from the first film that was fighting alongside Crow, that kind of buries the stuff in the center of the arena and then leaves.
Oh, yeah.
And people were wondering, like, why wasn't he brought back for this? But I don't know that there was a really good way to get that character that made sense to bring that character back. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to remember the character's name, but that was kind of a character from the original that was like made sense to somehow be included in this one. It's Jaimin, was it Hunsu?
Oh, yeah.
That plays, was it Juba or Jubba?
Yeah.
He was kind of offended that they didn't give him a call. And I would have been too. I'd been like, man, like a main character in the first film, you don't bring me back at all. What?
And he's fantastic. Like he's a great actor. I have my own little personal list of, if I ever became a director, which actors would I be wanting to give a chance to like head their own film? And he's one of those. I'm like, who are characters who play side characters, but I think could actually have the wherewithal to be able to lead their own film. Yeah. And he's one of them. I think he's fantastic. Yeah.
Well, he didn't miss out on anything because this is not a particularly great movie.
No,
it's like,
no. I mean, and he's definitely not hurting for work either. So
yeah,
but my goodness. Yeah. Again, it's not, it was meh. Like I saw this by myself in the theater. I went to like a matinee show and saw it, and Laura really didn't want to go see it. And I was like, that's fine. I was like, I'll come back and tell you. And I looked at her when I came back and I was like, I'm glad you didn't go. Like, again, it wasn't terrible. It was very meh, very mid, and just there was really nothing special about it outside of like, again, even Denzel, as much as I think he was the best part of it, it's not my favorite Denzel performance. No. It's not even in the top 10. I mean, like it just happened to be, he was, in my opinion, the best part of the movie. And I thought it could have been better in certain ways. But
by the way, did you recognize the guy that played Jugurtha, the kind of the head of the barbarian tribe, when he was at the beginning of the movie, and he makes it to that first arena where the baboons kill him? His name's Peter Mensa, but he was in Spartacus, the TV show on Stars.
That's right.
He's like the head of
he's the trainer of all the gladiators. Yeah. That's, oh my goodness.
Yeah. I recognized him immediately. I was like, wait, that he was in Spartacus. He's like done this before. By the way, great show, and just crushed.
Well, he's also in 300 too, because he's the guy who gets kicked off the
This Is Madness.
No,
this is Sparta. Yeah, that's him. Yep.
Wow, he gets around. He does. He does a lot of these singles.
And he looks the same.
Yeah, he does.
No, I kind of felt bad for Quinn, Joseph Quinn, because on paper this should be a really interesting role to play Gaeta.
He played Gaeta. Okay.
Yeah, you know, and we've seen him in Stranger Things and stuff like that, but I was actually more intrigued by this guy playing Caracalla, because that character is just hilarious. I mean, just repulsive and hysterical, and especially when Gaeta's like, "Oh yeah, the disease that's afflicted his loins is like moved to his brain." And then it's like, and then once he tells Macrinus that, then Denzel's like, oh, well, off we go. Yeah.
Use that to my advantage.
Yeah.
I felt I didn't really like the twin emperors. I know that they are, I don't know if they're specifically, but I know it's like there is some historical accuracy to having twin emperors, and I believe that the true story of them is far more interesting than what we got on screen. Well, that's
so they didn't
sad.
Get along. The real emperors, Geta and Caracalla, and their reign only lasted maybe a year or something like that. And they hated each other from the start. They lived in separate sides of the palace. They had their own separate guards. Caracalla tried to kill Geta once, and then with the help of his mother, he lured him in some sort of like peace agreement into like a side bedroom in the palace where Geta's personal guard could not go. And his mother held him down while Praetorians came in and stabbed him to death.
Whoa.
And then Caracalla only reigned for like real short period. And he was killed on the road headed somewhere. But if you go to those emperors after them, like they don't last very long, like 2 years here, 3 years there. And most of them, I think, are just straight up killed.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting era of Roman history, but obviously it's just super convoluted in the hands of Ridley Scott and company. Like they just, I mean...
Well, and Macrinus is as a real character. I do know that as well. Like that actually.
So Macrinus succeeded like 2 or 3 emperors later.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, so
he's a real guy. He wasn't black. And I think Denzel's even said that like my character's not originally like wasn't a person of color, but like it didn't matter. No. So they, and I don't know what the real Macrinus's rise to power looked like. I guess that's where I get frustrated is there's a bevy of like Roman history sitting out there that these guys just ignore. Like they're not even interested in like putting it into the narrative. They're just content to like take the character names and create caricatures of them. And I don't know.
Again, it would have been great as a Denzel film of him trying to take over the Empire.
That could have been a cool like mini series.
Yeah.
But
I did not like that he was a slave of Aurelius. I understood why they did it, but it felt too much.
Well,
like
I didn't even get a flashback of that either. Like I just get the whole show me, don't tell me rule of filmmaking. And he just is telling, was it Lucilla that?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're not going to actually show us like what that interaction is. You could have had a actor play Richard Harris from behind and not showed his face, or cast a guy that looks like a young version of him.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just missed opportunities.
It's the problem is that's not the safe choice. Like having Macrinus be the main character or even larger character is not the safe choice. And let's be honest, Hollywood is not about making the bold choices in many cases.
So the 12, you probably read this. Excuse me. You have to go to the number 12 highest grossing film of 2024 before you find a movie that is not a sequel.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, that's terrible.
So everything 1 through 11 is a sequel.
No.
So that's where we're at.
Oh, man.
And then this is another one. So
though fun fact for Ridley Scott, this is actually only his second true sequel.
Really?
That he's ever made, because technically Prometheus is not a sequel.
It's a prequel.
It's a kind of a prequel. And so Alien Covenant is his first sequel that he ever did. And then so this is a second. Now, I do think this is better than Alien Covenant. Alien Covenant was really rough and not great.
I still haven't seen it. Yeah.
You don't need to.
I enjoyed Prometheus, but
Prometheus is the far superior film compared to Covenant, at least in my opinion. I mean, I'm sure you can find it somewhere.
Yeah.
But even this, it just pales into comparison to the original. There's just not.
So I'm going to ask you, because you've asked me this before of other directors. Has he lost it? Has Ridley lost it? Yes. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unfortunate just because I love his work so much. And if you don't have to go back too far to see something that's actually excellent of his either. It's not like, and this is a real recent thing, and I don't know how much of it is it like it is he the problem, or is it kind of what you're saying, studios, what they're going to allow him to do? Because I mean, I think like we go back, like I'm looking through his list real quick, going back to the last one that I really think is fantastic. What is this? Oh, he's a producer. I want.
Was it The Martian? That's almost 10 years.
Yeah, that's if so, then that's a lot longer out than I thought. Yeah, Last Duel was no. Alien Covenant, no. Yeah, Martian. Okay, never mind. So we're 10 years out from him being, in my opinion, having a solid, great movie. Because I love The Martian. I absolutely love. I really like it too. But we're in the same. We had the same discussion about Scorsese. Yeah, that we were about 10 years removed from his last like really great film.
Yeah. So
I don't know. Yes, it's funny that The Martian feels so much newer than 2015, but yeah, it's been a while. So okay, so yeah, I mean, I'm gonna stick by it. He's definitely lost it. In the last 10 years, it's definitely nothing but kind of a downward spiral with kind of some ups, but I don't know. Like maybe he's got not enough to say, or he doesn't push himself enough, or it's more about the money, or I don't know. I don't know what to put it in, but we're definitely not getting the greatness that is Ridley Scott. And I do think he is a great director. I don't want anyone to think that. I just don't think his latter years.
He is a great director, but he's wildly inconsistent as well. Like he's way more inconsistent than a lot of his other contemporaries. Like his ceiling is really, really high, but his floor is super low. Like he just is. Like he's That's like true. I don't know who I'd compare him to. Like if he was like a NFL quarterback, like he's the guy
like Brett Favre.
Maybe, yeah,
the gunslinger. He just keeps throwing it.
Throw
in
like 6 picks in a game, yeah.
But then he'd win the game.
But then he could win. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's just what he is. Like, and it's almost always dictated by the quality of script that he either comes up with on his own, with somebody, with rewrites, or just getting a hold of a good script. But yeah, I mean he's a visionary, and I think maybe he's gotten a little too comfortable with like some technology and stuff, and like as far as what he uses to tell a story. But I don't know. If somebody asked me like what's comparable to this movie, I'd probably say Kingdom of Heaven. Mm-hmm.
It's funny that you mentioned that.
But not the director's cut, the theatrical.
No, yeah, the theatrical version.
The director's cut's quite a bit better movie, but
longer.
This is very similar in what the way I came out of the theater was almost identical. It's like, oh, I was entertained, but I didn't.
Were you not entertained?
Not as much as I would have liked.
But it's a fun fact that you mentioned Kingdom of Heaven, because so after Kingdom of Heaven, they built those wall sets in Morocco, and instead of dismantling them, he sold them to the Moroccan government for $10 because they would, obviously instead of spending a lot of money on dismantling them, he just made $10. Well, the Moroccan government kept them up. And so the Numidian battle sequence uses the same walls that were used in Kingdom of Heaven. Yeah. So that battle sequence is, and he
shot that in Morocco too?
Yeah. So, and he had to rent that back out. Like, so he had to actually rent the set that he built 10 years or 12, 15 years
It's cheaper than dismantling though. That's super expensive. And they do always have to just dismantle it and then throw it away.
But it was nice because he did go back to Morocco, though a lot of this actually is shot in Malta, which is lovely. Yeah. And because there's actually a whole, my dad, we were talking about it with my father, and he was showing all these satellite imagery of like the western end of the island where like they still have the Colosseum that gets used in so many different films as either a Colosseum or another amphitheater or whatever.
Right.
And it's really cool. So yeah, they did Malta, Morocco, and then they did the UK for a lot of the on set stuff.
I will say, I thought Rome looked awesome in this movie.
Yes.
Like the advances in technology, in computer rendering, like because they're able to import like real textures now in when they render stuff out. So Rome has never looked more convincing than this one. Rome has a very stylized look to it in the original that I think is just a limitation of like budget. And this one, it's like, I remember that first shot they cut to of kind of a side profile of Rome with the Colosseum. I was like, wow, that's impressive. Like, and it was in, nice big 4K laser IMAX, and it looked great. So it's a good looking movie. Nobody's going to accuse it of otherwise. It's just conceptually, I think you would have needed a script that was a bit more risk taking. Like, and that you're right. The studio's not going to back that. Or
you spend a little more time building in the switch for Lucius, or I would say just cut all don't make it a tie-in to Gladiator, make it its own film. Like, make it Gladiator II, but
like a Roman anthology.
Yeah, exactly. And
I like that.
Lucius have again, maybe the similar path, but be different in some way. Like, instead of being the Roman general, he is the barbarian who comes in and see what that does to everything. Because while it's nice seeing a lot of the cast from Gladiator in there, they all die. They all get killed off. But secondly, it also kind of was like hints of like, this is not as good of a movie as the first one. Like, it kind of kept being a reminder of like, oh yeah, I really liked you in the first one. That's a better movie than this. Like, so it drew me away from the story as opposed to helping me tie it in with the first movie. Yeah. I mean,
thinking about it just kind of off the cuff, when I'm kind of mulling this over, I'd find a film about some lowly guy in a area that gets taken over sacked by Rome and gets conscripted into the Roman army and doesn't ever become a gladiator, just rises through the ranks of the Roman military and wages war and loses friends, and just give me like a pure war film in the world of Gladiator. And I think that would have been amazing. I think there's all sorts of possibilities here, but this wasn't it.
No. Or do that. He goes in the Roman, he's barbarian, gets conquered by Rome, becomes a slave or part of the Roman army, does a bunch of battles, does something to get kicked out or whatever, and then becomes a gladiator, and then maybe just wins his freedom or something. I don't know. Doesn't have to be as this epic. I don't know. I'm not a writer. This is not,
No, we're just spitballing at this point, but
this is just, it's just frustrating.
Well, unless you have any other closing thoughts, I'll wrap us up. So
I do not.
Yeah. So. Well, we appreciate everybody listening as we kind of riffed on a very uneven sequel to Gladiator in the form of Gladiator II, or what was it you said? How did you pronounce the opening title?
Gladiator, like Gladiator, because they put the two in the middle.
They do,
it's just dumb.
Well, but we appreciate everybody tuning in this week and letting us play spoiler on this. And if you enjoyed it, post on our YouTube channel, but don't tell me that you just enjoyed it. Like, I want to know why, what you liked about it. Cause I'm sure we'll have our detractors on this, and that's fine. So
that's fine. This is our opinions.
Yep. Well, we'll be back next week with another entry in Cinema A to B, and we're going to go ahead and sign off.
Thanks, everybody.